Hey there, it's Larry Lursey. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since we've had a video. I've been doing some studio renovation, been doing some traveling, and so I'm a little backlogged on coming out with videos, but we're starting to put them out now, and I've got some great stuff coming up. I've got a lot of images actually from a trip to Italy recently that we're going to work with, and that's what we're going to start with today is another one of our vacation photo rescues. This is where we take an image that's just kind of so-so and see what we can do to fix some errors in it and enhance it and just turn it into a much more impactful image than what we started with. I'm going to start out in Photoshop, but most of the work will end up being done in Luminar AI. If you don't have Luminar AI, there's a link below where you can check it out and get a demo to follow along with me with your own image if you'd like. And I'll even give you a coupon code at the end of the video that you can use to get it at a discount if it's something that you'd like. But I think that's enough introduction. We've been away for way too long. It's time to get going, so let's roll the intro. Okay, so here's the image we're going to be working with today. Just a fairly simple landscape image of a little villa out in the Tuscan countryside, and I loved how the morning fog was rolling through here, and we've got a little bit of mist in the foreground. So this is what we're going to play with today and try to see what we can do with it. So as I've done in other videos, I've kind of got a two-step process. The first is going to be kind of repair, second one is enhance. So first thing I'm going to do is go in here and tweak the contrast a little bit because it's got kind of this washed out look to it. Now you can do this when you're importing it in Camera Raw or however you're bringing it in through Lightroom, whatever your process is. I'm just doing it right here in Photoshop so that we can kind of follow along and see what's happening. Normally I would do this on another layer, an adjustment layer, but for simplicity of the video, let's just go ahead and do it right here and do Image Adjust Levels. And bring this up here. Now what I want to do is grab this top triangle and I'm going to hold down the Option key and pull it across, and it will basically start showing me as I'm bringing the darkness across, increasing the dark zones of the image, where things are blocking up, and we know we've gone way too far. But we can go basically up through about here until we start seeing stuff happening up in there, as you can see. So I know I don't want to go that far, so I'm probably going to go about here. But that is just kind of a good way to check to make sure you're not blocking anything up. But I think we're fine on this one. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space. I'm going to move it just kind of the edge of the curve here because I want to be able to tweak that contrast in Photoshop just a little bit. We can try the same with the highlights. Drag them across till things start giving us trouble. Maybe about, just kind of come in just a hair like that and hit OK. All right, so happy with how that looks. Now what we're going to do is make a copy of this. Call this layer LUM for Luminar, and if we can remember, we will save the template we use and rename that to the template name. But we're ready to go now. Let's go into Filter, Luminar AI. Okay, now as always, Luminar has gone over here and kind of given us their suggestion. They're suggesting maybe the Easy Landscapes set that's got all these different presets through here. We could also just go down to landscapes and you've kind of got all these different groupings that you could just jump right into. Grab the Easy Landscape, pick one of these and go with it. But I want to kind of go through this thing a little more slowly, so I'm just going to go into Edit because I want to basically go through a lot of the tools and kind of build up the image slowly as I go. So we'll start with Enhance. Now Sky Enhancer, obviously there's not a lot of sky involved in this image, so that won't be as big of a deal. But the accent always does a really nice job. We'll kind of bring it up to the middle. It kind of brings in a little that clarity. You can kind of push it all the way to the side and see what it does. And then probably start backing up. But I'm going to leave it somewhere about in the middle because I don't want too much. Just to show you what the Sky Enhancer does. See, it's kind of deepening those blues, but I kind of like it a little more misty, so I'm going to leave this about 50%. You can look at the light here. This is a good place if you want to play with the color temperature. Maybe you want to play around with warming it up a tiny bit, which I like, just a little bit. And we'll go into structure. Now structure is going to go through here and kind of add a little bit of grit and sharpness. You can bring up this boost. There's kind of the There's the before. There's after. You really see the texture it's bringing out down here in the field from there to there. I'm going to take that down a little bit. I just want a little bit because I'm still going to go for a little more soft of an image on this one. But we're just going to kind of go through and take a look at a lot of these. Not going to mess with the color right now. Details, we could bring back a little of this detail in here, sort of these kind of medium details. Push it up just a bit to kind of bring out those trees a little bit. Let's put it about 32. We can even play with the sharpening. See what that does. Here we go. I don't want too much up here, and I could mask that out, but again, a lot of this is going to be cropped, so I'm not as worried about it. Let's pull that back a little bit. Just trying to get a little on that house. I think that works. About like that. Let's look at the before and after. Okay, I think that's good. Now, denoise, I don't know that we had a ton of noise in this one. You can always just run it all the way across and see what it does. And you can see it's not doing a ton because we don't have a ton of noise in this one. So we're not going to worry with the denoise right now. All right, the landscape. Now, this one's always a lot of fun to play around with. And let's go ahead and open up the advanced so in case we want to change the hue. But I always like to start with this dehaze and kind of move it across and see what it does. Now again, we've got a very hazy scene here, so we don't want to go too far, but we might want to pull out just a little bit like that. Look at our golden hour. Just little bits of tweaks. Again, here's your foliage enhancer. It's really only going to attack those greens. Let's run it all the way up so you can see kind of a before and after. I think about there's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the color of the foliage, so I'm not going to mess with that after all. But let's just kind of look at our before and after on this with just using this landscape filter. And you can see it's definitely giving it a little more punch. A lot more effect up here than in the sky. Again, if you look at the sky before, after, and then down at the foreground before, after, definitely doing more down here with this landscape type thing. So that's something to keep in mind if you're trying to do something with the sky. It's not going to do as much in this landscape. Vignette, I'm not interested in vignetting yet because I'm not sure how I'm going to crop this thing, so I'm probably going to have to wait and vignette later. All right, so let's slide down here, take a look at sky. Now, this is for basically swapping out skies, which we don't really want here. We're just going with the fog, so I'm going to leave it as is for right now. Augmented sky, adding things in, doesn't really apply either. But we will use some atmosphere. You can see it's designed with fog, layered fog, mist, and haze. I'm going to switch this to layered fog. Even though we've got a ton of fog already, I want to see what it looks like just to add more in here. So let's go to our before and after. It's kind of putting it through this stretch right here, which I don't mind, but I'm going to pull it back just a little bit. So I've got these both set to around 21, 22 in there. And again, let's look at the before and the after. Very subtle, but it's giving us a little bit of fog right through that section, which I think looks nice. Sun rays will allow us to move around and add sunbeams coming through, but the sun's kind of a little off to our right here. We've already got kind of a nice flow with the light on that, so I'm not going to mess with the sun rays quite yet. But dramatic is always a fun one. Now, what dramatic seems to do is add contrast and take away saturation. And as we move through here, like we move it all the way up, you'll see an extreme example. Really adds a lot of grit to it, but it's sucked all the color out. So we're going to dial that back. Now they've got this down here where you can add the saturation back afterwards, because you'll notice as you do this, it starts taking it away. Let's look at a before and after. There we go. Adds a little more texture in through there. Mood. Now mood here is kind of hit or miss. Mood can make some drastic changes which you may love or you may hate. I'm pretty happy with where we're progressing with this thing already, but just for grins, I may just kind of run through a few of these just to see if anything jumps out at me. But I'm kind of liking where we were, so I'm going to just leave the mood turned off. Now, mystical is one that may work on this one as well, because it kind of adds this dreamy feel to it, and with the fog in this scene we have here, that should help. So what we do is run it all the way up, take a look at it, and it's really kind of hidden the whole thing in a shroud of soft focus, but it's kind of interesting looking. I think there's room for a little bit of that. So what we may just do is play around with it a little bit. Bring up the shadows a tiny bit. And let's again, before and after. There's before. I like that. I really like how it's affected this area up here. If you look at that, the before and after. Giving it a little more glow, which I think looks nice. Okay. Skim on down through these. We don't have any portrait things. In here, this super contrast is an area that will definitely give us some things to work with. And so kind of look through here. We've got the highlight areas. As what you'll do is you'll bring up the amount, and then you decide, do you want them to go lighter or darker? So highlights being, a lot of them being our clouds. I think we might want to go like that, a little bit lighter. We're not making a huge change. Bring up the contrast to about 30, 32. And then you just kind of dial through here until you get it how you like it. Go to shadows. That's too much. I like coming up this way. Now we can play around with the highlights a little bit just to see some different looks. All right, let's look at before and after. Whoops. Again, there's the before. I feel like it's a little too much, so I'm going to bring all these down to 20, 19 or 20. Let's do another before and after. Okay. All right. And I'm going to take this down a little bit. I feel like I've gone a little too much on this. I'm going to reduce all of them just a little bit. There we go. Just kind of a nice extra little glow through there. Now, one thing we can play with as well is go in here to dodge and burn and go ahead and kind of pre-burn in some areas that are a little too bright, like down in here. So what we can do, oh, that's way too strong. Turn that off. Let's bring the overall amount halfway. I'm going to bring the strength down to about 10 or 11. Get a big brush. And just sweep through this area over here that I'm trying to get it to match up a little bit more with what we have on that side. See what we've done. There's the before. There's the after. Just brought in a little more richness back there. All right, I'm pretty happy with how this has turned out. Let's take a look up here. We can hit this little, let's get out of that. Let's go up here and hit this little comparison tool. And so here's our before. definitely has added a lot more richness to it from there to there. And again, this was even once we had tweaked the contrast. Coming through to there. You can see a lot maybe even back in these trees, the before and the after. It's kind of added some nice warmth. We've really brought out the texture of these fields in front. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and save this one. And we will go up here to templates, my templates. Here's the one we just saved. Let's call this Tuscan Morning. And we'll apply it. All right, first thing I want to try and remember is to go up and add that template name, Tuscan Morning. So again, there's our before and after. Now, of course, by having this on its own layer, we have the ability to go back. If we decide we've gone too far, we can go back and try toning it down. But I kind of like what we have here. One area I would love to work on is bring in just a tiny bit more contrast down here in the house. I feel like it has a little bit of a washed out look, and here's how I'm going to accomplish that. I'm going to make a copy of this layer. I'm going to hit Command-Shift-U to make it black and white. Then I'm going to change the mode here to multiply, like that. But it's, of course, hitting the whole image, so I've got to put a mask on it. Fill that mask with black. So now we've got a mask basically erasing that whole layer that we just did on top. Then I will switch to a brush. Let's get a soft brush. Bring the opacity down to about 20 or so. This brush a little bigger. Like that. And then I'm going to switch to white. Make sure I'm on the mask. And I can just kind of paint in these areas that I want to bring that extra bit of contrast back to. So again, even maybe up there and down there, I can add just a little bit. Let's take this down to about 10. Through there. I like that. All right. So there's the before, there's the after. I feel like that's a little more now in keeping with the rest of the scene. So I'm happy with that. So my next step is going to be to crop it. And what I got to try and do here is figure out what parts of this I want to keep and what parts I don't. Let me go ahead, before I do any cropping to this, let me just go ahead and save what I have. Okay, now I know that I would like this to be a 10 by 20 based on the size of the space that I have. And right now, this thing is image size, it's about 27, so it's even bigger than that. So I'm going to set up here, and I will put 20 inch by 10 inch. Oops. And that's my 10 by 20 crop. So let's take a look here and decide how we would arrange this to get a good composition. Now, I know this is kind of my center of interest, so I'm inclined to probably bring it down a little like this. Putting that kind of right down in there, losing a lot of that really bottom, like that. I'm still not convinced that I need all of this up here, so what I might do is go ahead and save this. It's pretty good right there, and I might just go ahead and crop off even some more of that sky. I'm going to crop off a tiny bit more. Okay, that I like. It's going to be kind of an odd size, but that's not the end of the world. I've moved this over where I'm not down on a third horizon-wise anymore. I've kind of got it in the center. But the way this thing works, it's almost two different images I've got working here. I think it works nicely because we've got a little bit of support here and all the sky at the bottom. Just for grins, I'm going to try and take off, go right to the bottom of that. I like that even better. And so I think right there we've ended up with a interesting adaptation of starting with that original image and ending up in this one. Totally different scene, but I think it still kind of conveys a nice warm feeling, and I'm happy with how it turned out. Let me know what you think. And there you go. I'm pretty happy with that one. I think from where we started to where we ended up is a really nice transformation. A lot more impact. I think Luminar really did a good job of going through and really making some enhancements little by little to kind of take that image to a whole different level. So I think it worked out really well. You can also use the coupon code LarryPhoto, and that'll give you a little bit of a discount. So whether you want to pick up Luminar AI or the new Luminar Neo that's coming out, you got a whole bunch of different options there. So how did you think it went? I would love to hear your comments below. More importantly, if you've got your own image that you'd like me to try for one of these upcoming videos, just send it to vacationphotorescue@gmail.com, and I will put that on the list to use for a future video possibly. But that's all we have for now. I hope to see you all again soon. Take care. Bye-bye. By the way, if you haven't already subscribed to the, okay, we're just not going to mention it this video.